Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's December 6th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And for the most part, this is an uptrend. You can see that we have a two-tiered channel working higher. Early on, it looked like a range, which is the darker blue color in here going sideways. And you see we broke out, and of course it failed. Comes back, it tests the breakout area, it holds, and only test it one time. It takes it a little while to build some steam, and then it runs up again. And we reached the upper side of the channel. But the main thing, the way I played this is I looked for a measured move based on the range, which is what this blue line is up here. If you just measure the range, oops, I don't know what that is doing there. But if you just measure the range, you can see that's the blue line, and that's pretty much where we got. So that would have been a great target today, and I pointed that out around 9:30 this morning at the mid-morning chart. So you should have had that target. Didn't look like we were going to get there when we were doing all this sideways, and we spent really the majority of the day trading sideways. We traded up. We traded up for, I would really say we were still in the range right here, but we traded up 29 points, as you can see right there, just after the open, after we really traded down that far. But I would say we really didn't start trending higher until here, because that's when we broke out of the range. So for 10 minutes we traded higher, and then we just went sideways, and then for another hour and a half we traded sideways, or up, I'm sorry. So really we had less than 2 hours of up trending price action during the day. And so there, even though this is an uptrend, there's not a lot of opportunity to get in any of these. There's a couple of chances to get in these two moves, but nothing easy, or maybe here we'll talk about that one, but it just wasn't easy. And so the volatility is not like it has been, but the bars are still really big, still really high volatility compared to normal. And so this is not easy trading. So when it gets like this, I'll be honest with you, you're better off just not to try to trade it. There's not any real good trades in here. I've marked a couple here and there, but it's not really good trading. So you can get chopped to pieces in just a New York second. And because the bars are so big and it sometimes moves so quick, it doesn't take long either. So honestly, I would tell you that when it starts getting sideways like this, maybe just step aside. And if when you got to wait that long, I mean, if we look how long we were in this range, I mean, really we didn't break out till here. So that's 2 hours and 2 minutes, 171 bars that went nowhere basically. It's hard to sit there for 2 hours and not get any setups. And there's just, you can see I marked maybe a couple of green ones in there, but there's just not anything good going on in there. So the point I'm trying to make is just be really careful trading this market. It's a tough market right now, and the volatility is really high. As we get closer to the end of the year, we'll probably slow back down and get back to more normal. That's my expectation. Now, it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, because something different could happen, and this could continue on into next year, just like we had that year of COVID where it was pretty much like this all year long. And then we kind of settled back into a more normal trading again. Um, but the volatility's back. Not as bad today, and my guess, and like I said, I'm guessing it'll probably start to slow down as we go into the last couple of weeks of the year. But prior to that, as a lot of the institutions will be uh, closing out and adding on to the positions. They'll basically be balancing their books going into the end of the year. So who knows what will happen? That could bring on some volatility until they wrap up whatever they're doing. So just be prepared for that and the possibility of that, or be aware of it, and just be aware that this is not an easy market to trade. So really what I recommend is waiting on the trends and then trying to get in the trend. Otherwise, stay out of this stuff. And when you're getting to the end of the trend or way away from the EMA like that, be really, really careful, because as you can see, this move happened and then it was over for 2 hours before it came back again. Same thing here. We had this big move up, took it right back at the open, moved up again, just went sideways for however long that was. I can't remember how. I don't know if we looked at how long this sideways stuff lasted. That was basically 30 minutes of sideways stuff there. So, and then we had this big move up, and then 2 hours of nothing, and then this last move, and then it was sideways or down the rest of the day. And of course, if you can catch the down move, they're great too, but it's hard to trade. It's hard to go short on an uptrend like this, because a lot of times it just does this. And then when it does move, it moves real quick, and then it's just sideways again. That's the whole problem, is we're not getting a consistent trend. We get these bouts of where they're buying, and then when the buying dries up, it either sells off or goes sideways. So just be aware of that. But I'm going to take the trend channel off. Actually, I'll leave it on there. I don't think it's too distracting. But you can see early on, it looked like a range. And you can see the roller coaster EMA until it finally took off up again instead of coming down here. So, but 7 o'clock came right in here where this first trade is. Notice that we moved up. We had the first break. We tried to go higher once, twice, and it looked like we were just kind of stuck here. And then you get this failed second entry short. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry, it fails. When this broke lower right here, let me zoom in a little more. When that broke lower for the third time and failed and went up, you might go long right there. I like that trade. You could look at this as a double bottom and maybe a first entry, second entry, and this one's right off the key entry point. So that one for sure. If you didn't enter here, definitely enter there, and you can see it trapped the shorts real quick, and it took a while, but it kept working higher. So you finally got a couple of closes outside, and then you got 2 legs up, and then boom, the bottom fell out, and we took it all back again. And then notice we turned down here. We try to go long once, twice, and then this actually breaks higher and fails instantly on one tick and turns down. Look how bearish that is. That's a failed second entry long. It's a double test of the EMA. It's a huge bearish bar. Just go short right there. If you caught this trade right here, that's all you needed today, because you probably get a runner on this, and you can see that one move. Well, single contract's worth $875. So if you can catch a move like that, you don't have to fight this thing all day. So try to catch these early moves, because the market tends to move the best early on. And here's another opportunity here. You got a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Now this doesn't, usually you want it to be above the EMA. That's the reason I didn't make this blue, but it's got to break higher above the EMA. So you might consider that one, because this is definitely played out here. And you can see the trend line definitely looks like it's in play. And this is a higher low on a failed second entry short. So you might take that trade. It's not ideal, but there's some reasons if you want to be a little aggressive. And if you do, you get another runner, and you can probably ride this all the way up. And then we actually get a break here, and you get a first entry, and it turns down again and goes back up. So it's a little odd, but it is still a second entry, and it was a second entry when it broke higher there. You might wait till here, but it's right back to the high, not a lot of room. So I don't know if I'd take it that way. I'd probably trade the trap on this and go long one tick above this bar. That gives you plenty of room. It works either way, but you got to be real careful. But if you didn't like that one, if you wait a few minutes later, you get another second entry long right here. And now you have a quadruple test of that low. I like going long there. And of course, you think you're going to go higher there, and it fails and comes back yet again. Runs up, and you get a first entry, second entry. I marked this one green, but it is a failed second entry short. It's a really nice signal bar as well. The key is, do you have enough room to get out? before these highs right here. And so you might have to let this one break higher and back up. And it doesn't back up till here, and it does continue higher. But I don't know if I'd ride that out. So if I didn't go long right here, I probably don't take this trade. And of course, we chop around there and then run down to the lows again. But unfortunately, you don't get a setup down here. It's too bad because there is a triple test here. And there is a bullish bar, but it's an inside bar. I don't recommend trading that. But there is a first entry short, second entry. And when it breaks above these 4-bar matching highs, that's a failed entry, second entry short. And with all those matching highs, if it breaks higher, it's probably going to run up for a quick, easy scalp, which you can see it does because it traps people. You got shorts here looking for prices to go lower again, and they run everybody's stops, and that gives it the momentum to actually push out the highs here. And it just keeps going. And there's no other way to enter on up here. It's getting a little risky, and then we're just kind of, it's just too much congestion here. Just stay out of that. I don't see anything. There is a triple test here with a signal bar, and there's a second entry long. But when you start going chopping sideways, I'd quit counting. So I'm not looking for second entries. I'm just looking for entries off the support. So you might enter that one right there. I didn't mark it, but that's one you might enter. And then for sure, I don't see anything else in here I'd even remotely consider. It's just, I mean, there is a nice short right there, but it's right back into the EMA and the support. We did push lower here, but you know, it's another possibility. You could argue for it to be green. I wouldn't mark it blue. Of course, we drop down. We're chopping around. I don't see any setups here. We run up. Again, I don't see any setups. We're just kind of, you just do that sideways and a drop and a sideways. It's just really hard to trade that unless you get a good setup, which you don't on any of these. I don't see any good setups. And then it does the same thing down here on the lows. And there's just no good buys off the support. Notice we do run up here and get in this, and you get this turn down off the high of the main range here, and then this little congestion too. So you might take that one. It gives you plenty of room. If you take that one, that's another nice trade. You'll probably get a runner off this one, and you can see that's a quick, easy 10 points. So that might have been a pretty good trade there. I marked it green because you'd rather wait on a lower high, but lately we're not getting any lower highs. Once it breaks out and fails, it's just zooming the other way. And here, you do get a second entry long on a little bit of a lower high, but I'd want to see the lower high a little closer like here, and then you can't enter on this bar. But this is another one that you could argue to maybe enter on. I mean, there's a few of them in here like that. And there may be some others that I didn't mark, but they're just not ideal trades. There's reasons to consider them, but I'd like to see a higher low that breaks lower, like here, that has a good signal bar, but you got room, you're either above the EMA or you got room to get out before reaching it. Because even here, you could argue this to be a failed second entry short, but it's below the EMA, and you could just tick up right there and turn right back down on you. So it's just really dangerous trading. But you could look at this as a double bottom, then a first entry, second entry. And we did just push out there, and that's a really bullish bar. So that's another one you might consider. It's not, again, it's not ideal, but it's one you might consider. And then, of course, we get outside here, and you would expect this to fail, and it comes back first entry, second entry, and it bounces right off that key entry point right there, and gives you a second entry long and a nice bullish signal bar. Look, if you go long right there, that's another easy trade, and you get a runner out of it. So there's another one that you might, you know, if you've hung around this long. Then, of course, we're working back. You get a close outside, move to a new low, and we bounce off that trend line again. I mark this one green. It's a nice bullish bar. You do have a break and a new low. It is off the key entry point. But I'd rather see a higher low here, and of course you don't get it. Look at it just take off. And then we're just going sideways again. And the only time I see a lower high, there's one right here, but we've already moved to the other side and we've come back. So you need to wait again, and then there's your lower high. So, and it's not a perfect signal bar, but I'd look at this as a double bottom, so first entry, second entry. And again, you're not really looking for second entries, but if you get a setup that's a second entry, and this is a lower high, fairly bearish bar, you can see we double tested the breakout area and it held again. So we're probably at least going back down to test the lows again. So you may take that one. You could argue for that to even be green. It's close. I marked it red, but it's close because we do already have the close outside here and a new high, and then we're really finding resistance there on this sideways stuff. And you can see we've been consistently running up and down. So then we break out, and of course you don't get an entry on this. It just drops straight down. Close outside and a couple of legs down. You just get a first entry here out of some congestion. So again, not a very good setup. There's a convoluted second entry here, but there's nothing I would take there, especially this late in the day. And then finally, you run up and you get a first entry, second entry short. And you get a nice bearish bar, and you got room back to the EMA. You probably don't get a runner on this one, even though it runs on down. But it does give you a second entry short late in the day with a nice signal bar. And you would look, and if you see the bluer channel, you would look for prices to come back down to the trend line anyway. And of course, it takes it a while to chop down there, but that's where it goes to. And it's well after 2 o'clock by then, or 2:30 by then. So yeah, I don't see anything else there. There's just not a lot of trades today. There were a few early in the morning, but from about 9 o'clock on, it was really slim picking. So if you didn't see any trades, that's because there weren't a lot of them. Definitely not a lot of good, obvious trend trades. So what you might do, as long as it stays like this, what you might do is only trade. I had a conversation with a trader on Sunday, somebody that I went to lunch with, and we talked about this. And my feelings are, if the market's not trending like this, just if it's sideways or in these ranges or in this choppy stuff, don't attempt to trade it. It's just not. I mean, you can see that there's some consistent highs here, but even them, this one's higher than this one, and this one's higher than these two. This one's lower than this one. Look at, none of these are consistent. That's what makes it really hard to trade. When they're real consistent, kind of like this one is, and you get good signal bars with plenty of room, those are not too hard to trade. But when it's inconsistent like this, it's really difficult to trade because it doesn't turn at the same place every time. So it's not as consistent. It's not as reliable. And so understand that difference in a range where you're turning at different spots. Notice how we started to turn at the same spot every time here. That makes it much more reliable and consistent. And I marked a green one in there, and for that reason. But earlier on, it was very inconsistent. Same thing up here. You finally got one that was, actually this one's not very consistent because this one was higher and this one was lower and this one was, you got to have consistency to trade those ranges. So hope that makes sense. But anyway, I don't see much more to talk about. And I just tell you again, be careful in this stuff. People keep asking me about how do you handle the volatility as far as the size of your stop and all. Look, to really take any of these trades, you have to trade like we normally do. You have to always put your safety stop one tick above or below the signal bar. Now with some of these 15, 20, and 30 and even bigger signal bars, you're taking a lot of risk just to get a scalp. So you're going to have to adjust something. So you either have to, one thing I will say that is if you're reading the chart and you get it right, it's really simple. It's almost a gimme to get your 4 ticks on the scalp part. It's getting the runner that's the problem. But if you're not really good at reading the chart and you make a mistake with a signal bar that big, you're going to wipe out not only your day's trading but your whole week's trading probably. So that's the problem you have to deal with. And people keep asking me how to trade it. Well, I'm going to trade it the same way I always do. I'm either going to skip the trade or I'm just going to take it. I'm going to put my stop where it goes and I'm going to trade it like always. But not everybody can do that because your skill set of reading the chart is not going to be good enough, and you're going to have you're going to be wrong because you're going to be trying to get long and short back and forth in here, and you're going to probably just get chopped to pieces. So wait on these trends. And the other thing you can do is try to use a limit order. But as you can see, every one of these really good trades, let me show you this. There's only a few good trades in here. But if you look at every one of these good trades, like here, here, maybe here, right here, you might have got lucky on this one. But if you try to drop a limit order in after, you still have to wait on the trigger for the trade. So the trade will have already triggered, and most of the time it's just going to go without you because it takes off and it doesn't come back. So if you're going to try to enter on a limit order, that's what people keep asking me. I'm just going to enter on a limit order. Well, that's great, but you're going to probably not get any of the good trades. You're going to miss them because the prices are not going to come back. They're going to take off and leave you. And so that's the only negative to trying to use a limit order while all this is going on is because you're only going to get a limited number of really strong moves or good trades, and they're probably going to take off without you, and they're not going to come back and get you. And if they do come back, then you're probably going to get stuck in something like this or something like this, and that's not good either. So if you want some ideas, go to the website and read the frequently asked questions page. I couldn't get that word out for some reason. And I talk about it in there, but basically I'm just telling you the same things I'm talking about here. You might be better off just not to trade these days. Or either just wait for the trends and hope for you get a second entry like right here to trade it, or you get a failure like this to trade it, and you get some good movement. But otherwise, you're not going to get many trades trying to use limit orders in this kind of price action. So just keep it in mind. I'm not against using limit orders. I'm just telling you, you're not going to get many trades. You're going to get left behind almost every time. So that's the issue with it. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Just as a heads up, at some point, I haven't looked at my calendar yet, but I'm probably going to take off the last couple of weeks of the year. So I think Christmas comes on Saturday this year. I believe that's right. So I'm probably going to take off maybe the Monday or Tuesday prior to Christmas and take that whole week off and the rest of the end of the year. And I'll probably come back on, I think January the 4th or 5th is Monday, and I'll come back on that day. So just kind of be something to think about. We'll talk about it some more, and I'll give you some exact dates before that. And so it won't be any chart lessons, no midnight morning charts. I'll be very limited on my email. I'll only answer emergencies, and I probably won't look at it but once a day, that kind of thing. So I'm going to try to take some time away during the holidays this year and try not to look at this very much. But anyway, just a heads up. But we'll talk about it more as we get closer to that date, but another week or so. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.